Thanks for listening. If you'd like to schedule a one-on-one coaching with Dr. Lodhi, please visit drsadaf.com. I am an American board certified OBGYN, a mom, a Muslim, and I'm talking about sex. This is the Muslim Sex Podcast. Before I get into it, the first thing I want to make very clear is that I'm not giving any kind of religious or medical advice. So if you are seeking medical advice, please go see your healthcare provider. And if you have any questions about your religion, please speak with your friendly neighborhood religious leader. This is the Muslim Sex Podcast because I'm a Muslim woman that just happens to talk about sex. Hi, Dr. Tamara Beckford. How are you? I'm so excited to finally get you on my podcast. That you're a very busy lady, and I just would like our viewers and our listeners to know a little bit about you. So if you could just tell us, who you are, where you practice, and what got you to doing what you're doing now.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me on this wonderful podcast. I really do love, and I have been listening to it. So I am Dr. Tamara Beckford. I am a practicing emergency medicine physician. I'm also an entrepreneur, and my business is called Your Caring Docs, and I am the CEO of Your Caring Docs, and I help busy professional women put their health and wellness, which is their self-care, first, right? Because we're not trained to do that, especially mentally trained to do that, right? And I help us to put it first for at least 2 hours a month without guilt, which is the most important part, right? You're doing it and we're not going to feel guilty about it.
Right. Yeah. So many of us, especially, in this, I feel like in our society, we just feel like the need to always be busy, right? So if we're not busy, we feel like we're not making a difference. We're not, just reaching whatever it is that we're trying to reach for. And we just times our mind, any time to decompress or anything like that, right?
Absolutely. I feel like in our society, busyness is a badge of honor, right? To someone says, hey, can you help me with that? And it's just like, oh, I'm just too busy. And it's just like, wow, you're so important because you're just so busy. And so we use it as a badge of honor, but sometimes it's to our detriment because this consistent set of tasks that's piled up on our schedule, when are we going to take time for ourselves? Absolutely. And when we do, the busyness and everything else that comes along with it starts to add the guilt. And you say, so you move from being super busy to now being guilty for not being busy. Like how crazy is that? And that's the world we live.
Yep, you're so right. And, I'm guilty of that for sure. Anytime I'm actually having fun, I feel like, wow, I'm not.
Yes.
Like, why am I not working? I should be working. So
absolutely.
I agree with you. And absolutely. So tell me, how do you go about helping women do that?
So there are a couple ways that I do go about that. I do have a society and I do coaching. And with the coaching, it is one-on-one and really helping you to determine, what is it that's important to you? So my aspects and what I delve deep into is self-care. And I love the term self-care, even though, a lot of people, we use it. And, when we ask someone, so what are you doing for self-care? And this is, oh, I can't tell the last time I went to the spa. And they're like, okay, that's one aspect of self-care. But self-care is something you can incorporate every day. And so this is something that I really help women to put into practice. And most importantly, to realize like, wow, I really don't have to wait for a particular time of the week, or I don't have to wait for a time of the year, such as, oh, well, my self-care is when I go on this vacation to this really exotic place. And I can't wait until 6 weeks from now when I go on vacation. Yeah, but just stop now. So what are we doing now to really delve into what's important to you? And that's what I help women do. Let's figure out what's important to you now, and we start working on that now, and we do it every day, because as our days go on and as we go busy and busier in our lives, we lose the essence of who we are. We forget because now we're moms, we're physicians, or whatever title it is that you are, and then the titles get piled up higher and higher, and the essence of who you are gets lost. So let's bring that back out. And that's what I help women do.
It's excellent. And that's so true. And, I see that every day. And it's very hard to find that time for yourself. And like you said, and not feel guilty about it. Right.
Yes. Yes. And there's the thing about finding that time is that one of the challenges that we have is that we have a mental block as to how to find the time and how to carve the time out, because we feel like it needs to be a large period of time in order to decompress, but it really doesn't. You have, of course, a lot of techniques, a lot of yoga or tapping or mindfulness. And a lot of these are breath, breathing, a nice breathing skills that you can incorporate in techniques. And a lot of them, they don't take that long. But our minds are like, oh, I have to take time for self-care. I'm going to need to. And then there it is, the mental block. I got to add this to my schedule. I'm going to now be busier because I'm trying to take time to myself. And we said, no, slow down, pause. You can actually incorporate this a little bit every day, and it has a huge impact.
Right. So is there a particular, I don't know if you use an app like Headspace or is there a particular mantra, or is there something that you suggest your, clients that they use to help them? What do you use?
So I am not using any apps at this time, but yeah, Headspace and Calm, of course, those are apps that one can use to try to meditate and to help with mindfulness. But what I do is try to help them bring out what it is most important to them. So these apps can help, but after you figure out what do you need, because these apps are going to help you to augment what you need. But once you figure out what is it that you need, like for me, the meditation and the mindfulness is wonderful. But for me, I need some time to read and clear my mind. And that app is not going to help me with that. Right. Mm-hmm. So what is it that's important? And that's the difference and the importance of self-care, because it's individualized. Now, once you figure out what it is that's important to you, then you can use tools to help you to strategize and to incorporate it in your life. But first, what is it that's important to you? And that's the hardest part, because we have so many layers covering that person, from all the life experiences that we've had and all the titles, as I mentioned prior, that we now have in our lives. So breaking out that layers and getting back to the core is the first step. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, it definitely gets complicated. Mm-hmm. So, as you probably know, I have a podcast called the Muslim Sex Podcast, and yes. Sex coaching and intimacy. And so, how do you help women to, I guess, to help discover themselves so that they can be more present and alert in their own relationships?
Mm-hmm. And all right, this is one thing that I truly love, and I'm glad that you are asking this question, because that's one of the ways that we do get lost, right? We get lost in relationships. And when we're in relationships, it's good to be equally yoked with the partner that you're with, and therefore you are doing a lot of compromising. But when the compromise gets beyond a certain level, then you now lost your identity.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important to find your identity, because when you do, then everything is so much better, right? How the intimacy that occurs when you are self-fulfilled, but the other person is there as an addition. It's not there in order to be the only person that can help me. You are already happy and you're already pleased within yourself. Everything else is just, like we'd say, icing on the cake, right? And now when you have that, everything is better, right? The intimacy is better. The physical physicality is better, because you're not dependent on the other person for it. the other person is just augmenting everything you already have because you've already been fulfilled within oneself. And that's what I think is the essence of this partnership, especially when it comes to intimacy and self-care. Like you've already been, everything is just an icing on the cake. And I think that once you get to that point, it's just so much better. You can tell me what you think, especially with all that you've interviewed so many wonderful guests and gotten into so many details. But that in essence is my take on self-care within intimacy.
No, and you're absolutely correct. I think that, so one of the first things that I focus on when I speak to women is regarding their beliefs, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the same thing I'm sure that you talk about with self-care. And some of the common beliefs that women have about themselves is, poor body image, mm-hmm. or the fact that they're too old to enjoy, sex anymore, or mm-hmm. that they're too old to have an orgasm. Perhaps they've never had one, they don't know what it is, what it, feels mm-hmm. like. So, that's actually the first thing that I do is I go over what their beliefs are and why they believe what they believe, right? And then we go into perhaps, anatomy, depending on what their level of, knowledge is about mm-hmm. themselves and, where things are in their body. And then, we go through mindfulness, right? Mm-hmm. And just what you're talking about, loving yourself. And so many studies have shown that just mindfulness alone increases arousal and desire, women, right? Just being present. And just mm-hmm. what you're talking about with the self-care, with women being so busy and having so many things on their mind, and, with this to-do list, that to-do list, that even in the most intimate of, situations, we're not fully present, right?
Right.
So when we're not fully present, we're not going to experience and we're not going to enjoy what we're doing.
Absolutely not. Right.
But the brain is not there, the body's there, but the brain is not, right?
And the arousal that occurs, it requires both working at the same time. It's not just the physical portion that brings it on, like as you mentioned, the mind isn't there. If the mind is on your to-do list and you're physically in the act of this intimate act of sex or whatever portion of intimacy you are, the body's response is totally different. And it's so even important, as we mentioned, with that, even mindfulness, which I think is part of the care in self-care, is that when you are there and you're experiencing the other person there with you, mind, body, it's so important that at times you might not even need the physical touch, because just the presence alone brings about the arousal and all the emotions that comes with intimacy. And that's, I think, is an essence of self-care, in that you yourself feel so fulfilled that being around that other person, it adds so much to it. And then the body might, the body not might, it will follow. It will follow.
And just exactly what you are talking about is one of my episodes on the nonlinear model of the female sexual response. And that was created by Dr. Rosemary Basson. And she speaks about exactly what you're talking about, just that emotional intimacy that we crave and that we want, right? It includes being mindful and having that mindfulness. And then just as what you said, then the other things follow, like the desire, the arousal, all of that follows once you have that connection of that emotional intimacy. So absolutely, I agree with you 100%, and it really starts with your own self-care, right? And
absolutely
loving yourself, right? Before you can even love other people, it's so important to love yourself. And that's actually what I tell my own kids. I tell them, that it's so important to love yourself and who you are, so that the energy that you project is what you attract, right? Love yourself, then other people will love you. But the most important thing is that
you love you. It's so powerful. It's easy to say. And that's was one of the essence. I'm so glad that, we're having this wonderful discussion, because these are things that are easy to say, but during times when you are at your lowest, that's when you should be able to look in the mirror and say, wow. I remember one of my clients, she says, I look in the mirror every day and she says, ooh, you're just so sexy.
That's awesome.
Isn't that awesome? I mean, because if we think about the mindset and the shift that she has changed her mind and programmed her mind to see herself as sexy, as opposed to see herself as, oh, look at this here. Oh my gosh, this has now changed. Oh, I wish this, I wish that. It's just like, oh, I love who you are. And I think that one of probably our mutual colleague, I saw a wonderful post of Dr. Sasha Shilcutt had on Instagram, and she was exercising, and she said, thank you. She was having a gratitude practice during exercise about her body. And I thought that was another wonderful way of self-love and self-care. So many times our bodies have changed. And especially as moms, if you've had like very challenging pregnancies, like I've had 2 very challenging pregnancies, and my body does not look the way it did 20 years ago. But then I'm also 20 years older. Recognizing that. So, so the self-love while you're exercising, thank you, these lovely legs for holding me up. Thank you to this wonderful abdomen for carrying these beautiful babies. Like these expression of self-love versus, oh, look at this love handle. Oh, look at this. It's a different aspect. And that love that you have for yourself and you tell yourself that, it brings you to an extremely different level. And as you said, when it comes now to the intimacy portion, you're no longer feeling that you have to cower away. You can express yourself and you can have the joy and everything that comes along with intimacy because you love yourself.
Absolutely. I think one of the other things that is helping me that I don't always do, but when I do, I feel so much better is journaling, right?
Yes.
And down and
everyone here too. I've tried. I'm like you. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna continue. I have one right
here. Yep, I have mine right here. It makes such a difference. And I went back just yesterday and I was reading some of the things that I wrote, and one of them was just being grateful for how far I've come and this and that. And I thought, what, I need to be doing this more often, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I tend to get lost in every day and think like, gosh, I should be doing more. I'm not doing enough. And then just to step back and say, what, I did a lot.
Absolutely. And that's another great expression I love that you brought up of self-care, which is recognizing there are 2 parts to that. What the mind is telling you that, especially for those of us who are high achievers and type A personalities, just completely raising our hands. There we are. We will consistently think that it's not enough. It's not enough. It's not enough. And, when we look back at what we've achieved and you step back and you said, if I had someone bring me their letters, a child or another person I was mentoring, and they just showed me everything that I did written down, I would be acknowledging them and congratulating, like, wow, you're doing a lot. And so I'm going to, do that for me. And then if I were unable to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish, I'm constantly working on my mind to say, that's okay. Yeah. That's okay. Give yourself grace. It's a part of the love. It's a part of the self-love.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. It's just being kind, right? To yourself first. And giving yourself grace and knowing that you're doing your best. And something else that I say to myself that helps me out a lot is I say, I am where I'm meant to be.
Oh, love it. Right? I love that.
I am where I'm meant to be. And that just, where I'm meant to be in life, so that I'm not always running to the next step. I'm just trying to be in the moment and appreciating where I am and what I'm doing.
That's giving me goosebumps. Literally, I think it went all the way down to my legs. I feel it. I am where I am meant to be. And it's such a powerful statement. And this is what I love about like these statements. You know, these are simple words, but they have such deep meaning, because if we look and we can apply that to so many aspects of our lives, right? Where I am where I'm meant to be here in this part of my life, in my career, in, you know, the relationship, in the decisions that I've made, the decisions that I made in the past to get me where I am right now. And I am going to sit and enjoy it, because so many times we miss the journey because we're looking for the destination, and we miss out on so much. And, you know, so I love it. I am where I'm meant to be. If there's anything I'm taking away from this podcast,
I love it. I love it. I'm glad. You know, I look at your social media and I love it. I love it. It puts a smile on my face because I see your smiling face and your words of encouragement every day. And sometimes I just look at it and I just listen to what you're saying. It just brings me great joy. So I love your social media.
I love that. Okay, so I'm glad that we got a chance to talk. And, you know, I love that you are covering topics, especially cultural topics that you were told to hush, hush, how dare. And I know that you've gotten, you know, some not so friendly messages, you know, pertaining to what you're doing. But I applaud what you're doing. And, you know, I know that I'm the guest, but as a guest, I applaud and I am watching. And I have to let you know this, because so many women are suffering in silence. And so many women are suffering, not understanding what's going on with their bodies, or why things occur, or thinking that they do not deserve to have great sex, great intimacy, and great love. And even self-love is at their lowest, and their self-care is at their lowest. But you are on a mission to change that, and I applaud you. And so as a guest, I am very honored that you're taking me in onto your podcast to really help our women out there to discover that self-care, self-love, intimacy, and great sex is also very important part of their lives.
Starts with the self, and that's where you are, so that you help women, you know, discover themselves and love themselves. And I think that that is fantastic. In terms of, you know, what I'm doing, it's exactly what you're saying, right? So I come from a very conservative community, and you know, I grew up in a Muslim community, and there were very you know, things that we talk about, things that we don't talk about. And I don't think it has anything to do with, sure, yes, I grew up in a Muslim community, but I think it has more to do with our society, right? It's true for most communities and most environments. I don't see very many people speaking about it. And, you know, it's not to be obscene. It's not to be vulgar. But it's about, you know, talking
information.
Exactly. And bringing that information to the forefront. And a lot of times women don't have anyone to talk to regarding, you know, issues such as vaginismus or body image or emotional intimacy that they feel or they are lacking. And, you know, they don't know who they can discuss or who the trusted resources are. So, you know, I aspire to be, and I can only hope that I bring some value to, you know, the listeners and the people that are on my page, and that I show them, you know, that there are definitely resources out there. You know, I try to cite evidence-based research when I say something or a reel or something like that, so that people can go back and check out the sources and see what the sources say, but that they're, you know, that they have a voice, and that it is important to recognize and understand that, and to experience pleasure, right? That's something that we don't talk about ever. And especially,
and it's something that we all deserve.
Yes.
It's one of our basic rights as humans. You know, we should be able to experience pleasure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't think that enough women know or even recognize it, that it is important, right? For self-health, you know, for self-care, and and that they deserve it. And why not? That's the way we were made, right? We were made to
Exactly. Why not?
actual pleasure. Absolutely. Absolutely. So,
Yes.
but, I want to give a big shout out to you. I just think that what you're doing is amazing. And I think that it's so important for self-care for everyone, not just for physicians, you do it for everyone. And if you could please tell us your Instagram handle and how people could get in touch with you if they wanted to book a session or do coaching with you, that would be great.
Absolutely. It'll be my honor to take care of any of you all who are listening. You can get in contact with me through Instagram. I'm available at Your Caring Docs. That's URCaringDocs.com. My handle is also similar to the website. So I'm at www.yourcaringdocs.com. And you can always find me also on LinkedIn. And that's where a lot of my posts lie, on LinkedIn at Tamara Beckford, MD. On LinkedIn. You can find my picture there, and I'll be happy to connect with anyone. And if you would like a free consultation or discussion and just see if our values align, if you feel that working with me will be able to get you to the goal, then I'll be happy to book a call with you. And it'll be my pleasure to help you.
Awesome. And I think, I did hear, though, from someone that you are the Oprah physician. So maybe just before we hang up, we stop the podcast, but I'd like to talk a little bit about how that happened.
Oh, wonderful. So I have been deemed the Oprah of the physician or of EBS. So one of my other passions is similar to what we're doing now, in that I do interview my lovely physician colleagues, and I get to highlight all the amazing things that they're doing inside and outside the clinical space. So of course, you will be one of my wonderful guests. Can't wait to get you on. And I do that through the Dr. Tamara Beckford Show. And at this point in time, we have interviewed over 150 lovely, lovely physicians. Wow. I know. I mean, there's so many doctors doing amazing things, and I've been able to interview physicians from all over the world. And I cannot wait until we get on the show. And we'll be in opposite seats, but having the same great conversation and highlighting the importance of self-care, highlighting the importance of awareness, intimacy, and sex, and the importance of sexual health for all women.
Absolutely. I'd love to. I can't wait. But this has been amazing. And I am very honored to have you on.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Beckford, the Oprah. So very good. Well, thank you. And this is the Muslim Sex Podcast. And I thank you, all the listeners, for joining in. And until next time, be well. Thank you. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to schedule a one-on-one coaching with Dr. Lodhi, please visit drsadaf.com. And until next time, this is the Muslim Sex Podcast.